Hello everyone, xforts here, and welcome to Chainsaw Man Chapter 108 and 109 review and discussion. Got a double feature for you guys this week that contains two juicer chapters that pretty much concludes and gets through the rest of this Justice Devil and Yuko fight, with some other very interesting surprises and twists thrown in from Fujimoto along the way, like a Horseman of the Apocalypse arriving right at the end of 108, and Denji meeting Yoro at 109, and Asa being able to use Yoro's weapons, and just a lot of things to discuss here. So before we can actually get into the chapter, you know, of course, we have to do our, preemptive anime discussion, see what's going on with that. So we had episode 3 last week and episode 4 this week, and at this point with the anime, it's kind of hard to say anything else other than it's amazing. Map is knocking it out of the park with every single episode. The animation is just so goddamn clean, and especially in episode 4 we had Hidenori Tanaka, an industry titan working on this episode, known for his work on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and Jujutsu Kaisen, where he is just so attentive to detail in pretty much all of the works that he's done. And in episode 3 it was very noticeable where you see like the close-ups and the detail in characters' faces and how detailed everyone's hair is, and even just the way characters move and how loose they are in their limbs, and how he pays so much attention to detail, to anatomy and the ways that things weigh and the ways that things should move. And it was just super awesome seeing his work in this adaptation, and it really showed throughout that entire fight with the Bat Devil. It's absolutely awesome. It's just, there's really not much else to say besides that. And then in episode 4 this week, again, they're just doing so much more than I expected. It's almost like it's almost like reading Chainsaw Man for the first time again. Like when the Leech Devil showed up, I'm like, okay, I remember the Leech Devil. It like stabs Denji through the heart, and then, Aki cones and it dies. And I'm like, 8 minutes in, Denji's still fighting the Leech Devil, wrapping its intestines around its legs, and it's like, oh my god, like in the manga, literally the Leech Devil fight is 9 pages, I think. I looked before I was recording this. Like I was baffled by how like much they're stretching the source material, but in a way that's adding so much value to it. So I definitely don't think they're like stalling or dragging things out in a bad way. Like literally this episode, this 25-minute episode was 3 chapters, 3.5 maybe, because it was the start of the Leech Devil to right when Power arrives at their house and Denji goes to touch her boobs and calls her an angel. But yeah, like literally just like not even half a volume, like a quarter of a volume, maybe even less than that was what they adapted throughout this episode. And it's just like, it never feels like it's dragging though. So I thought the Leech Devil fight there was a lot added to it, and it felt almost just intense as the Bat Devil fight. So just really sick there. And I know you guys are probably gonna wanna know my thoughts on the episode 3 ending with Maximum the Hormone. I thought it was perfect, guys. Chef's kiss. If you follow me on Twitter, I expressed some of my opinions over there. I thought it was absolutely perfect. It's my favorite music that has come from this adaptation so far. I love Maximum the Hormone, and I thought this song was even crazier than what I was expecting from them. Just the noises and the dialings and the scratching and the buzzing. It's just, it is just a trip like hearing that song. And I can't wait for the full version to come out. It's only the TV size available right now. So because especially at the end of it, it like ends on a bridge and a lead up. I really want to hear that full song. And visuals, it was psychedelic, it was demonic, it was red, it was black, it was just really sick. I thought that could have been a cool opening as well. Like when I'm watching this, it's like, oh my god, they made this sick ending, and it's only just for this one episode. Like, I love Kickback, of course, I love the non-canon visuals in the opening, but honestly, like, if I was executive director of the anime, I probably would have made the ending of episode 3 the opening, but that's just my own personal taste. I just thought it looked sick, it sounded sick, and it really encapsulated pretty much everything of what's been happening in part 1 so far. And also the Muscle Devil was in it, so the Muscle Devil wasn't entirely cut. It did appear in what the hell's the sun called, like the 2 million centimeter long needles, something like that, or long blades, I don't know, some crazy ass name. But yeah, the Muscle Devil was in that, and it showed sort of the devils leading up and to where we are now, and as well as like some maternal symbolism between Makima and Denji, with her being like Mother Mary, and just god, it was so perfect, it really was. So I think that's gonna do it for everything with the anime going on so far right now. You guys have heard me praise it enough, so they're doing awesome. I thought the cone shot was awesome, and also before we get into the chapter, another thing in episode 4, like, these animators are horny for Aki. Like, they all want to have sex with this character. I'm telling you guys, like, seriously, like, the amount of detail they put into this scene of Aki doing his morning routine, where he's like, he's grinding coffee, he's going out onto the balcony, he's having a smoke, he's noticing Denji waking up, he's doing the laundry, he's tying his hair up. The animation quality into him tying his hair up is like better than it's more Sakuga, the more like that we've had in a single episode of Stone Ocean. Like, the animation is just so goddamn good in this, and like, it's like, yeah, they just dedicated, I don't don't remember Aki's morning routine from the manga, but now I remember it, and I'm not going to forget it because of just how much time they dedicated for it in the anime. So episode 4 was probably my favorite episode so far. It had pretty much all the things. It had the action, really sick animation with Denji, and I think the people that had a problem with Denji's motivation being wanting to touch boobs, I think that was addressed, and they really they hit the nail on the head with the way that Denji expressed why that's his motivation. What are your guys' goals? Like, Aki wants revenge, or he wants to protect people. It's like, you know, maybe if I can kill you, my dream's just as strong as yours. And I thought that the way that Denji expressed how he feels from the inside when he was fighting the Leech Devil, I think, especially the series being self-aware of the fact that the main protagonist has a stupid-ass, you know, motivation, I think that really culminated and made people realize that, like, yeah, I do like Denji and I do like his motivation. So I hope that, you know, cleared up quite a bit of things. Because when I was watching that, I was like, yeah, I kind of forgot that Denji had this whole spiel during this fight, and I think it worked really well. So that's what's going on with the anime. Ending for 4 was pretty cool. It was all about power, just power visuals. Honestly, I don't really remember the song. It was probably good, but yeah. So episode 4, awesome. Episode 3, probably even better. So let's switch gears over to the manga now, and let's get into this. Chainsaw Man chapter 108 and 109. So going back 2 weeks now to chapter 108, we'll go through it pretty briefly and also discuss everything that I know you guys want to hear about, especially that Horseman of the Apocalypse. So we pick things up right at the Leave It to Asa plan, where Yoru realized that, you know, she couldn't really do anything against Yuko. She was reading her mind, so she realized that Asa had some sort of plan and let her take over control. And what I thought was going to happen is that Yuko would realize that she's being Asa's bully and unalive herself and be like, I can't even live with myself if I'm making Asa upset, and she might, you know, just end the battle just like that. Or Yuko, or what are these names going on right now? Or Asa would be able to walk up to Yuko and just instantly kill her because, you know, Yuko would never want to hurt Asa. So if it's either you know, her Asa, or she kills me, she would probably let Asa kill her. And that is kind of what happens a little bit. But before we get to that point, I liked a bit of the world building from Yuko as well, where she mentions the Gun Devil. She's like, you know, the Gun Devil has killed over 1 million people. So I always like those moments, especially like everything we've seen from part 1 have some sort of influence in part 2. I think Fujimoto is doing a really good job at like just making this world very believable that we live in Chainsaw Man as time progresses naturally. He's been doing it a lot with the celebration and the commercialization of Chainsaw Man, where people really think of him as this hero of humanity, which was pretty much all a result of his actions throughout part 1. And seeing the Gun Devil again mentioned is interesting as well, because it makes me think, like, will we ever see the Gun Devil again? The Gun Devil never died, really. It was injured and it took over Aki, and then the Gun Devil Fiend died. And even if the Gun Devil did die, I'm kind of saving myself right here because I don't really remember what happened after Aki and the Gun Fiend. I think the Gun Devil was able to retreat, or it's now in possession of like the Soviet Union or something. But wherever the Gun Devil is, there's always the possibility that even if it did go to hell, it could come back at some point. And so far, I'm gonna get ahead of myself and go into 109, but we saw like the Mantis Devil earlier, and we saw the Bat Devil earlier in this part. So it is very interesting that Fujimoto is bringing back a lot of these devils and motifs and things that happened in part 1. So I'm really interested to see what else we'll see. I definitely want to see Kishibe and Kobeni and these characters that haven't come back, and especially Nayuta. So I like that part 2 definitely feels like a seamless continuation, not like a completely new thing, and it's carrying over a lot of elements from part 1. But back in the chapter and the Leave It to Asa plan, we finally see what Asa was thinking and how she's going to be able to defeat the Justice Devil. And we see that she is able to use Yoru's abilities when she's in control. So that was always up in the air. Yoru had mentioned that, hey, Asa, I want you to turn this person into a weapon. So it was implied that Asa would be able to use Yoru's abilities even when Yoru's not in control. But now it's like 100% confirmed, which makes Asa's character a lot more interesting in the way that she'll be able to collect her own weapons and they'll be able to work differently. So we know that the weapons are created, and the more guilt you feel about turning something into a weapon, the stronger they are. So if Yoru really wants to like build up her arsenal and become a stronger devil, she is going to have to rely on Asa a lot, because we know that Yoru is a devil, and like devils, they don't value humans' lives. In fact, it's like their main goal, their main thing is to kill humans and destroy them. So we know that it's going to be very difficult for Yoru to collect these strong weapons if she doesn't really feel human emotions towards anyone or any guilt towards anything. So maybe that, getting back into like the whole reason in the beginning of the part where we're like, why is the War Devil inside Asa? Why did it choose this human vessel? Maybe that's just how it's always operated because it needs these human emotions to create those guiltful weapons. So maybe this is how the War Devil has always gone about, and it's always operated this way. So it's going to be able to use Asa, so Asa can turn these important things into weapons, and then Yor will also be able to use them. At least I assume she'll also be able to use them. So the first weapon we see Asa create, different from Spinal Cord Tonica and the grenades and the pencil spears or anything, is Asa turning her school uniform into a sword. And the reason why it's so powerful is because it was one of the last things her mother gave her before she died. So it's a bit of memorabilia. And I'd always thought that, you also would be turning people into weapons like Yuko. I didn't really think that she could turn memorabilia or physical objects that she cared a lot about into weapons, because that's not really the way it was explained before. Before it was the more guilt you feel towards something, but light bulb just went in my head. I just remembered that Asa does feel a lot of guilt about her mother, because Asa went to go save a cat, and then Asa's mother was like, no, and then she got crushed by the Typhoon Devil. So wow, that wasn't even in my notes, but that kind of just popped up that yeah, Asa feels a lot of guilt towards her mother's death. So maybe that's the reason why her school uniform is so strong. And then when she transforms it, really cool, almost looks like a Kill la Kill reference with Senketsu here, where you're turning your uniform into your weapon and you're able to fight through it. And yeah, the way that Fujimoto did this, I saw some murmurs of people saying that Fujimoto is sexualizing Asa here, or it was stupid writing for him to just get the character naked so she could transform. And I couldn't disagree more. I don't think Asa is sexualized in the slightest in these chapters whatsoever. She's not drawn in a promiscuous way. She literally just isn't wearing clothes. And women by nature, you shouldn't look at women and be like, oh, you're a woman, so you're sexual. You're being sexual right now. She's just existing, and she's not drawn in a sexual way whatsoever. And Fujimoto even, I'm walking on eggshells here. I'm discussing a high schooler's physique in a manga, but you guys know what I'm talking about. The way that Fujimoto draws her is she looks like just the most normal person. Her boobs aren't busting out of her her bra or anything, and her underwear isn't pulled up to all the way to her ribs. She literally just looks like a normal all right, I gotta stop talking about it. So continuing on, getting out of the territory of Asa in her underwear, another interesting thing I want to mention in this chapter is what Yuko traded in order to get the Justice Devil's powers. Yoru, for some reason, asked Yuko, when you made your contract, what did you give in exchange for the devil? And we know that devil contracts, there's always something of equal value. It's usually an equivalent exchange thing, or just something. It can be as small as a fingernail, it can be as extreme as 50 years of your life, but there has to be some sort of exchange. And what Yuko says is that when I was given this power, I received a heart that shines with the light of justice along with it. Before that, saying I didn't give up anything in exchange. But what it looks like is that Yuko wasn't aware of what she gave up with the Justice Devil. And this would also kind of explain that shift in her character where she just turned into a Riddler serial killer type, just absolute psycho. Because in chapter 3 and chapter 4, How to Walk Shoeless, in those chapters, Yuko was a very admirable character who was very sweet and very wholesome and very caring for Asa. And I think that when she made that contract with the Justice Devil, she might have did it with good intentions, being I might protect Asa if things get out of control, or this will be my key into getting into the Devil Hunters Club, because we know plenty of good devil hunters that make contracts with devils. Just because she contracted a devil doesn't mean she's inherently evil. I mean, we have Aki Hayakawa and Kobeni, and we know Kobeni's contracted with someone, but not what devil, and Himeno, and all the righteous characters we met in part 1. It doesn't necessarily immediately make you evil. But what I think Yuko gave up in exchange for the Justice Devil's powers was her sense of justice, her heart, and it was replaced by a devil's, because the way that she's behaving right now is very much sort of her emotions mixed with the malicious intent of a devil, which is I still want to save Asa, but she doesn't have that consciousness there almost that is hey, by the way, you're doing terrible things, you're killing people. So I thought that was a pretty interesting thing of dialogue thrown in here that Fujimoto really didn't need to mention, but he did. And it kind of might make us a little bit more sympathetic towards Yuko and be wait, is Yuko just a mindless killer at this point that needs to be put down and taken out of the place? Or if we were able to take the Justice Devil out of her, we go back to that same Yuko. So now we're in a position now where it's was Yuko always a bad person, or did the Justice Devil do this to her? I thought it was a bit of an interesting dynamic, and made her death, or her assumed death, a little bit sadder later on. So continuing, one of my predictions did come into fruition, where Asa was just simply going to be able to walk up to Yuko and hit her. She just taps her with the sword, but the sword is so powerful because she has the guilt and the memories of her mother attached to it. It just completely disassembles Yuko into hundreds of pieces, and blood goes everywhere, and then we get that cool panel of Asa just covered in blood in the school hallway, and I think that just looks really cool stylistically. And it also reminded me of Shin's devil magic, or what is it, his smoke magic from Dorohedoro, if you guys know that character, where where like if he ever touches you with your smoke, you just completely get disassembled into a bunch of pieces. So I wonder if every single weapon Asa creates is going to have a distinct different ability. I think that would be really cool, because like that's clearly what this weapon's ability is. Asa didn't just go like ninja mode and slice her up in a millisecond. Like that's just what this weapon's ability is just completely disassemble someone. So I would like to see this weapon used again, and I would like to see her make more weapons and just have this variety of abilities that she can use in different situations. So at first it looked like Yuko was going to die by this attack. She's just coughing up blood on the ground in hundreds of pieces, blood everywhere, and we get this moment where Asa feels quite a bit of guilt towards her actions here, because this was her friend at one point, and when she mentioned that she didn't exchange anything, Asa also cognitively might have realized that like maybe Yuko was in there deep down, and this Justice Devil had changed her at some point. So when she's having this moment of guilt, this mysterious character shows up around the corner and says, do you want me to save her? I can save her life. Do you want to? And Asa says yes, of course, because she's feeling guilt about this right now. And then this character walks over with the Makima eyes, which we know from the beginning of part 2 it signals that this character is a devil and a horseman of the apocalypse. So it could be either death or famine. I think right now the community has mostly decided on that this is probably the death devil, because the only thing we've really seen them do is interact with death in some way, either bring someone back from the dead or exchange a death for another person. And also another reason why I think this is probably the death devil is because it says anything for my little sister, possibly referring to Yoru as their little sister. And death is sort of a higher class of war, where it was probably a lower fear than death itself. Everyone thought that death was going to be like the most feared, the most powerful devil ever, because it is something that everyone who lives fears. It's the most common fear, bar none. So it would also probably fall into the category of primordial fears as well. So very interesting seeing potentially the death devil being in their high school for some reason, because why not? All the most powerful devils in the world live in Japan, and they all go to the high school as well. So with that bomb just completely dropped on us with this new Horseman of the Apocalypse coming out of nowhere, we then get a quick time skip, but before that we see some devil hunters have appeared on the scene, and then out of nowhere Yuko is 5 times the size, completely destroying the school, breaking out of it. So we did have something happen off screen there, and we see more of the effects of what happened off screen in chapter 109, but we still throughout 109 we didn't really see what happened off screen, which is going to give us, like, at least from what I theorized what happened, is definitely going to give us some insight into who this devil was. But first of all, the girl that is presumably the death devil, who is this character and how are they operating? So we know that these devils, these horseman devils, they're not always small. We know that the war devil was small and went into someone. We don't really know what the situation with Makima is. Was she just born like that, or was there a smaller avatar that went inside Makima as a human and controlled her that way? We don't really know yet, but this character that we're looking at right now, clearly the appearance of these the earrings that she's wearing and just the jewelry in general, I think is that devil's appearance. The way that when Yoru takes over Asa, she gets the scars. I think when the devil is taking over this human, she gets the earrings. And who this human could be, it could be the devil hunter from the last chapter from the club who was holding the sword, because we never did see her face, and they had like longer, lighter hair. And she was holding the sword with a katana and a hat, and then she got knocked out of the window. And I mentioned that we never saw her eyes because her hat was over there. It was right over them. And then another character this could be is one of the characters that Yuko had actually killed in chapter 108 when Yuko was going on her rampage and she like bashed a student's head against the wall. It also looked like this character a little bit. They do look really similar, where it's just the girl uniform and short light hair. So I think maybe I missed something that's very obvious that tells us who this is, but so far I think it could be the Devil Hunter Club girl with the katana, or one of the girls that Yuko had killed. And I think both of those make sense, because if this is the Death Devil, it could work similar in a way that Yoru did, where Yoru was able to enter the human's body as they were dying. So now that Yuko killed the student, maybe this small Death Devil was able to go inside one of these people and then take control that way, because this is clearly a horseman devil inside a human, inside a student. There's no way that, like, if we want to say that Makima wasn't being controlled by anyone and Makima was just the devil, then why the hell is this devil wearing a school uniform? If they were like existing in their pure devil form, they wouldn't be in a school uniform. So I definitely think it's a smaller avatar devil taking control over one of the students, unless they're just like, here in disguise. Those are really the only two options there. So I definitely think that the Death Devil or the Famine Devil, whichever one this is working in a similar set of rules to Yoro, how it needed to be inside a person and take control over them. And this theory is going to be even further reinforced once we get into chapter 109. So we seamlessly pick things up right where we left off of at 108, with Yuko being much bigger now and exploding out of the school. And we see that Yuko is sort of suffering from a little bit of amnesia. She doesn't really remember what she was doing or what her objective is, but then she kind of comes to and was like, oh, of course, I'm trying to end bullying. Where do bullies exist? Bullies exist in schools. Now that I'm this big, maybe I'll just destroy schools. If schools can't exist, then the bullies can exist. And this is just more of a glimpse into, Yuko's backwards ass logic, or potentially maybe even this is the Justice Devil's logic now. And that leads into the chapter title as well, which is the easy way to stop bullying, which is just to destroy all of the schools. We see Yuko going on this rampage, and we see the two devil hunters that appeared at the end of 108, where they summon the Mantis Devil, and they just immediately get killed by Yuko. And what's funny about this is that these aren't the same devil hunters from the end of part 1. In chapter 91 of part 1, the Mantis, there's two people. There's a dark-haired devil hunter and a light-haired devil hunter, both guys, and they summon the Mantis Devil, and they both die. And I think it's funny now in part 2, it's two guys again, dark hair and light hair, and they're both using the Mantis Devil, and they both die again. So not the same characters, but it looks like Fujimoto is sort of this duo right here might be like a comic relief thing, sort of like, I don't know, where you have those, like, who's the one character in Star Trek that like always dies, sort of something like that. Maybe Fujimoto might be going for just a little bit of a gag of characters. Sorry guys, I don't know Star Trek. I just know that they have that sort of a reoccurring joke going. But anyways, so now that we get back to Asa's perspective inside the school, so we see that Asa's laying on the ground here, and some people might be like, oh yeah, Asa was fighting, but no, it's really important to remember where we were when we last saw Asa, because something happened off screen there. So we see that Asa is now laying on the ground, and Yuko is now huge and expanded and much more powerful. And the last time we had saw Asa is that this Horseman of the Apocalypse had approached her and saying like, hey, do you want to save your friend? Just say the words and I'll do it. And that was the last thing we saw from Asa. So the way that I'm interpreting this right now, oh, and also in this page, you can see this character with light hair in the background being shocked. And then Yuko picks up this character that looked very similar to the Horseman of the Apocalypse, and is like, and she says, it wasn't me, which is like, I think very clear that it was the Horseman controlling this girl, because why else would this girl be so close to them right after this? We had just mentioned that I think the way this Horseman works, similar to Yoro, it's able to go inside someone and sort of pass control back and forth. And I definitely think this girl right here that Yuko picks up and says it wasn't me, this was the Death Devil controlling the girl. And what did the Death Devil do, or the Famine Devil, whatever it's going to be, is that Asa had said, I want you to save Yuko, and Asa said, you can take my life, or you can take at least some of my blood or some of my power or just something from me in order to save Yuko. So then they made that transition, that contract, that exchange, whatever it was that happened off screen, and that was able to bring Yuko back to life and hurt Asa in whatever way she's sitting here. But we know Asa isn't quite dead, so it definitely wasn't a very strict contract like, exchange my lives, or maybe it was like that because Asa had Yoro inside her, she has like an extra life kind of that was able to bring her back. So very interesting. I really hope we see in the future what happened between that interaction, because a Horseman of the Apocalypse showed up, did something off screen, and left. So it definitely proposes a lot of questions, but I think right now that's probably the most possible thing, because it was also enforced in the last chapter that Asa felt quite a bit of guilt about what she did to Yuko. So it also makes sense for her to be like, oh, I can't believe I just did this. Just take my life instead, give it to her and bring her back. So I think that's probably what happened. And the way that devil looked, and the scales, sort of the balancing act of its of its earrings, that motif it had, I definitely think this devil would have the ability to sort of trade lives for one another, or take someone's life and give it to someone else, and just work in death and life in that way. And I think that would probably be the Death Devil's ability, because if the Death Devil is so powerful, what better like polarizing ability of the Death Devil than be able to give life and exchange life and take death from people? So I think that would work pretty well thematically, and I think that's probably the most likely thing that happened off screen, unless we get twisted later on when Fujimoto finally reveals it. So right when Yuko picks up the person that was most likely in control by the Death Devil, and maybe the Death Devil is still in them, they get saved by none other than Denji, who arrives on the scene. I really didn't like the way that this chapter was going so far, and with the Horsemen showing up, I was like, okay, this took a twist. Denji wasn't even on my mind at all. I just wanted to see more of this Horseman and what was going on with Yuko and what happened to Asa and how this exchange performed. But no, Denji shows up because he was probably at school in the first place, and he's still having that same exact motivation where he says, oh, I wouldn't want to blow my cover now, but I guess I have no chance because there's Devil. And he's like, looking around, making sure like, is everyone watching? I'm gonna do it. And he pulls his ripcord, transforms into Chainsaw Man. I think it's like the second or third transformation we've seen so far in part two. But yeah, just really cool seeing Denji. I think all of us knew that Denji was going to show up because of Yuko's damage and all the destruction she was causing. But cool seeing Denji in the part again. I like him, but like the way that things are moving, it's so fast. It's like I'm really a bit more interested in this Horsemen of the Apocalypse and where they're going. Did they retreat from the person's body? Are they still in the body? Are there going to be a character that contrasts Asa in that way, where there's a devil and a human sharing the body with the Death Devil, disguising, or maybe they're also trying to get close to Denji? Who freaking knows? So Denji just kind of goes on a rampage here, doing all this Chainsaw Man activity. And when Yuko tries to read his mind, Yuko's like, at first she's stunned. She's like, oh my god, it's Chainsaw Man. What am I going to do? But then she's like, wait, I can just read his mind and be able to defeat him and stop his every move. And Denji pulls out that classic protagonist ass pull kind of, where he's like, he's so stupid he's able to defeat the enemy, if that makes sense. Denji's so simple-minded. And when Yuko goes to read his mind, the only thing he's thinking about is that, I want girls to know my identity. I don't think it's specifically girls, but he's thinking about how to expose his secret identity while making it seem natural. And that's like really the only thing in his mind. He's not thinking about, do I attack low, or do I go high, or do I, go for the head or the legs? Like literally not on his mind at all. He just has one thing, and it's just, if I can transform and attack this devil, then maybe people will notice me. And that's able to just completely get him to kill Yuko. And I think that's where Yuko is going to end for now, because by the end of this chapter, we see her just like shredded to pieces. He's Chainsaw Man. Every devil he kills usually doesn't come back. So Yuko probably sent to hell. Although it'd be interesting to see at the end of this if maybe Yuko's body is still there and Denji just had killed the Justice Devil, but not Yuko herself, because Yuko was a really interesting character. And I think I think it would be cool if Yuko survived this and then it was revealed that the reason I was acting so crazy is because this Justice Devil had taken over control of me. So it would be really upsetting if Yuko's just gone forever after this. So now that Yuko is defeated, the chapter ends off at probably the biggest cliffhanger in all of part 2, and it's riding on this plot point that part 2 was set up for in the first place. Like the whole part has been leading to this moment, and so far this would appear to be like the climax. Obviously it's not, but so far with Yoro and Asa, the only thing Yoro has wanted to do is to get Chainsaw Man and bring back all of the weapons, have him vomit back up nuclear weapons. That's really Yoro's main motivation and the reason why she infiltrated Asa's body and all that. So the whole part has been leading up to this one moment right here, where it's that when Yoro can confront Chainsaw Man, and you have Asa awaken in her human form, and then we get this cool panel of like her shadow that looks a little bit evil and bigger, and then when she lifts her head up, it's Yoro who's taking control. So it looks like, although she might have traded some blood or her life in order to bring Yuko back, also it looks like Asa's still alive as well as Yoro's still alive right here. And we get this really badass panel of Yoro covered in blood, still in just her underwear, and she says Chainsaw Man, and they just have this confrontation where they look at each other. So now we have Yoro, the War Devil, and Chainsaw Man head to head, face to face, and I could say, yeah, they're probably gonna fight next chapter, but this is a chapter that I'm like dumbfounded the most by. Usually I have some sort of an idea where it's like, yeah, this will probably happen. Fujimoto might most likely go this way. In terms of Yoro and Denji facing each other and like, I have no idea what's going to happen. They could kiss, they could fight each other, they could run away, they could make a joke, they could just like, maybe Yoro mentions something from the past and we see like previous things that Chainsaw Man has done. Like, I literally have no idea where this could go. I don't even think Yoro's very powerful right now. We saw that Yoro couldn't even kill Yuko. All she could do was turn pencils and pens and rulers and crap into weapons. But now that she has, maybe Yoro will also be able to use the uniform sword. But even then, Denji could probably handle that, and he's Chainsaw Man. He should be able to like put up a pretty good fight against her. So in this, I don't think Yoro's in any position right here to fight. So maybe it'll go the way that Yoro's side tries to fight Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is like, hey, whoa, I don't want to mess with you. Or Denji will probably be like, wait, this is Asa. He'll probably recognize that it's Asa, and he won't want to hurt her or something like that. Maybe Yoro will be embarrassed, and then it'll just leave off at that, and then Yoro will have an even bigger vendetta against Chainsaw Man, being like, he made a fool of me. I need to get stronger. I need to get more weapons. And it'll just be kind of like, in a cartoon where you interact with the villain gets embarrassed, and then they have to go train and build up, and then they have to come back and fight. So very interesting. I just love the way that Fujimoto's writing Asa right here, where like we're not always with Denji, but in the way that Denji's behaving, he still is this protagonist type character. So it's like we're not through the perspective of the protagonist, but we're through the perspective of this anti-hero with Asa and Yoro. We're like, if you read part 2 in a way where you were in Denji's perspective the whole time, where these 10 chapters were like Denji going to school, Denji devil hunting, and then him encountering this war devil, it would very much clearly look like the war devil is a villain. But because we've spending all this time with Asa and Yoru, she's our protagonist. So just everything that Fujimoto has been doing with part 2 is just masterclass, peak fiction, gold, and I think it's only going to grow from here with this character that he's made, Asa. Like, I'm telling you guys, Asa has already become such a fan favorite character, and it's like by the end of part 2, or like as this is going to go on, like I think she could potentially even be more popular and more favorable to Denji. Just like everything about her and the way she's written, she is just a really damn likable character. And so everything part 2 has been building towards, with Yoru getting Asa's body and infiltrating school and getting closer to Chainsaw Man, it's all culminated to this one moment right here where Denji is standing over Yuko's dead Justice Devil body and staring Asa/Yuko straight in the face. So I do believe we get a new chapter next week, which is very exciting. I think Fujimoto is trying to stick with the momentum of the anime here, so he's trying to release a new chapter every single week where there's an anime, and the quality hasn't dropped. It still looks awesome. The artwork in this chapter was amazing. So he hasn't skipped a beat, and just Chainsaw Man is just on the takeover. It's almost so overwhelming every week, just having new manga content, new ending, new episode. It is just such a treat, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. We only have, it's kind of crazy to think that we're almost halfway over this this golden age we're in right now. We're on episode 4, so yeah, we only have 12, what do we have, like 7 more weeks to go, something like that. So all right guys, thank you all so much for watching Chainsaw Man double feature week, chapter 108 and 109 review and discussion. Let me know what you guys thought about this Horseman, the War Devil, the Famine Devil, the Death Devil. Who the hell was that? And as well as what's going to happen with Yuko and Asa when they Yuko and Asa and Denji and when they actually fight. Very exciting. So thank you all so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.